Hi, everyone. Welcome to A Matter of Taste. I'm your host, Rudi Stroebel, and here we discuss everything relating to food and how that affects your mental health, emotional health, and physical health. This is something I'm super interested in. This is the kind of footage that I really love to watch. And I thought this would be really interesting to invite some guests to talk about, these kind of things. I'm very, very excited to welcome my first guest of the series, Jarryd Nurden. Jarryd is an international performer, model, humanitarian, equestrian athlete, mindset and life coach, and a fitness coach. Jarryd, welcome all the way from London.
Yay, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here and to discuss this topic. It's such a hot topic at the moment, and certainly in my life, so I'm excited.
Absolutely. Let's get right into it. So at what age did you really move into the entertainment world?
I've always kind of had the entertainment world like around me, but it started when I was 16 in South Africa, and I entered a reality TV show competition in South Africa, and that kind of opened my world to musical theatre. The whole concept of the show was to cast two leads in an international touring production. I auditioned and got into the show, and that kind of opened my world up to musical theatre.
Do you remember what your audition piece was?
I do. I do. It was embarrassing because at that stage I only knew like pop songs, and it was Oh Mandy.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, so that was the song I sang.
That's fantastic. So how I became aware of you is when you did the cover of One Small Seed magazine. It was I remember it on the stand in my local little grocer when I lived in Tamburskloof. And since then, I've been kind of following you on social media, specifically Facebook, and it's been so amazing to see you be so open about some of the trials and tribulations of being a man, being a young man, being a gay man, being in the entertainment world, and some of the issues that had come up in your career around that. I honestly, it was, a lot of it was like reading my own story. Even though I wasn't in the entertainment world, I was more in the kind of, film and television and production side of things, and eventually chefing. But a lot of the same kind of themes came up, and it was amazing to see how open you are about some of the things that you have struggled with, and some of the things that you have encountered. I just want to quote something from one of your posts that at the time, I mean, honestly, I had a little cry then, and I had a little cry last night again when I printed it out. It was so heart-wrenching to see somebody be so vulnerable and so open about something that is so hard. And I would love for you to comment on it. And here he goes, quote, "My issues with my body, my money, and accepting my beauty were affected by the multiple rapes I had experienced over my life. The emotional, physical, and sexual abuse resulted in me running away from my beauty, quote unquote, because at some level I knew it was attracting danger into my life." You can go as deep as you want, but
yeah,
this really spoke to me because I had experienced a lot of the same things. Firstly, what prompted you to be so open about these issues, and if you can elaborate a little bit on kind of what brought you there and what you learned from it, that would be amazing.
What prompted me on writing the post was to share everyone out there, or anyone reading it, that you're not alone, right? And I think one of my biggest inspirations growing up was Oprah. Like, I think for so many people. And at the time, she was so revolutionary in just the conversations she was having, the people she was getting on her shows. And I remember as a small boy living on a farm in the middle of nowhere. When I came back from school, when it was so hardcore, and I would turn on SABC3, which is our local television program, and their Oprah would be on, and I would sit and watch and listen and watch and listen. So I kind of grew up seeking. I've always been a seeker, seeking the truth, trying to understand my life, my purpose. How do I fit in the world? Why am I here? why has the stuff that has happened to me in my life, why has it happened to me? So I think because of those questions that I kept asking myself, it accelerated my journey to figure out what was going on. And when I came, I did a lot of healing during the lockdown. And I think it was the first time in general that the world stopped, which for me was so good in hindsight, always in hindsight. But it was so good for me personally because in my life, I'd just gone, just go. And when severe traumas happen to you, you kind of go into survival mode. So you're just wanting to get through, you just push through. So that's what I did. I wanted to live a normal life, quote unquote. I wanted to be the man again, be all these stigmas and stereotypes that society told me to be as a heterosexual person growing up in society, number one. Then moving into a world being a gay man and going, oh, how does this look now? Taking on all those stereotypes, trying to figure out myself within that world. And then thirdly, coming to the conclusion that, no, I don't want to live that life in the heterosexual world or the gay world. I just want to live my life. But throughout that, carrying all the traumas whilst trying to progress. And I think once the pandemic hit, was the first time I could pause and then I could reflect. And then that's when I came to writing, because I love writing. And that's when I commented with this post and I wanted to share it.
I mean, brave it's kind of a condescending way to say it, because a lot of people go, oh, you're so brave, but it really is so brave. And especially in our world, the gay world, where how you look and how you perceive yourself to be is actually more important from what's actually inside of you.
100%.
But I hear the messages coming through from Oprah about, just to quote Oprah again, about living your truth, to let what's inside shine out and let the true self speak for itself. Where do we learn how to be unhealthy males, do you think?
It's just within the energy of everyone that we are around, right? So those unhealthy behaviors, it's just a way of socializing and being in society, whether you're gay or straight.
Right.
I think the biggest thing in this world for me is demystifying sex, because it's also been a stigma where sex has become the most important thing, and it must be the most important thing. And if you're not having it, you're wrong. And then and just layers upon layers. And I think that for myself was also just having to demystify everything. So yeah, I think we learn it from the energy and the people that we encounter on the journey. And unfortunately, when you have had sexual abuse happen to you, your self-worth goes so low that you start attracting the lowest vibrational kind of people out there into your world. So I'm such a believer of your point of view creates your reality. So if that was my point of view, which it was my point of view, that I had no self-esteem, no self-worth, then that was the kind of men that I was bringing into my life. That's the kind of experiences. And I think that's also why it perpetuated in my life, and why the rapes, I kept having these experiences until I found my self-worth and was like, not again. And then started just going, no, this can't be. It can't be like this. This is not how anyone's supposed to live. And I think where that question came in for me is because I became the world's greatest actor. And I think what's really hard for anyone who's having trouble with their identity. So I'm not going to just keep it for gay men. It could be anyone having a problem with their sexual identity, gender identity, whatever that identity may be, is that you end up living a double life.
Yeah.
So you having all this trauma in your life under here, but then on top, you are truly trying to live your authentic self. So I think what always saved my life was my passion for performing. Because when I was on stage, I was in my soul center, I was grounded, I was my most authentic self, my most powerful self, and I was filled with light. On top of that, with that, when you step off stage, people think, yeah, but, I've had the beauty thing come up. Yeah, but beautiful people shouldn't struggle, or beautiful people don't go through trauma, or then many different things. So you try to keep the stigma of like, I have this perfect life. Underneath, it's all falling apart. Eventually, so many things, we can go down the rabbit hole, but it just kind of led to really not. It's tiring when you're trying to live two lives.
Yeah.
And I think I eventually got to that stage where I was like, I'm done. I just want to live a clean, honest, simple, kind, integral, honorary life. Like, that's what I want.
And it starts with opening the wound and ripping off the Band-Aid off the gunshot wound and saying, well, this is what's been going on. So yeah, I think you were lucky in that sense to have a platform like any of the social media platforms to go, I don't know how to do it, but this is how I'm going to do it. This is how I choose to do it. And what you have done here then and consequently is have such a ripple effect to me to start with, but I'm sure to so many people who have read posts similar, because they are discussions around money and sex and all the other things that you've exposed here that really resonates with a lot of people. And I think that is that's extraordinary. I mean, I'm sure it's not pleasant, and I'm sure it's very confrontational to get that vulnerable on a public platform.
Yeah.
But you can't imagine the kind of ripple effect that this kind of honesty has.
Yeah, I'm glad. I mean, that is the intention.
With what you said before, it's a really good segue into my follow-up question, because in my personal journey, especially early on in the 80s and 90s, when I was, coming up in the world, there was so little to reach to when things went wrong. So you reach to things that I guess is a coping mechanism or a self-soothing mechanism. And in my case, it was sort of the performing side of things, but it was the complete cover-up. And I do see now, again, in retrospect, that there had been some issues with food around pleasing my family, who were such overeaters, like extensive family as well. It's such a integral part of the Afrikaans culture is to eat and to enjoy it. But I think
South African culture,
I think very often it's used as a way to fit in exactly the same as drinking excessively sometimes is. It's a social tool. And I thought if I joined them in eating this and this and this and the amounts of things that they're going to love me for who I was. And of course, there's many other things as well, but specifically what we discuss here around food and emotional health and food and mental health, for me, I see in retrospect that had been such a go-to, is to use food to try to fit in. And what it ended up doing was it creates an addiction. This makes you feel good. This makes you fit.
Yeah.
In your career, especially in the entertainment business and, as a model, had there been issues around food for you that had come up if you look at it?
100%. I mean, food is another thing we have to demystify with emotionally and the connections with it, because there's so many layers when it comes to food. I think I was on the train, or I was somewhere here in London, and someone's baby was crying. So in order to pacify them, they gave them a chip. It just hit me like a light bulb. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's why almost 90% of us have comfort food eating problems.
Yeah.
Because that's the first thing that we were comforted with when we were little. We were told, okay, we'll be safe and calm. when we have food. Ooh, this
It's
makes me feel
literally
good.
to shut you up.
To shut you up. And if you're feeling uncomfortable, oh yes, have something to eat and that will make me feel better. Cool. And you just grow up having this inherent connection to food making you feel better. I mean, there's so many times where I know I'm doing it, but I'll have like a stressful audition or something. I'll immediately leave and I'll go find a crepe with Nutella and I will go and thoroughly enjoy myself, now consciously knowing what I'm doing, but it's a choice. And I think everything in life will then boil down to choices that we make, and just getting away from the autopilot system. And once we can get into the conscious system of being with food, then our choices are informed. So if you're wanting to have that packet of chips to comfort you, that's the choice I'm making in that moment. And then that most often is okay because it's a conscious choice. But when we just comfort eating and doing all this stuff to heal pain inside as well, for when I was with modeling and performing, gosh, there's been so many shows where, I mean, for instance, Rocky Horror was the biggest test of all. Just with,
Because you had to really buff up and, get that body.
yeah, because I was in the show before that, I was on the world tour of Chicago, the musical, and we had been taken to China for 4.5 months. And culturally, it was a shock completely. And I mean, I love Asia. I did enjoy China, but finding and getting to understand the food culture there was really difficult. So what ended up happening is that I just started losing my own hope with myself. So I went even more to comfort eating, and I had wine and I had more chips and chocolates every night. And I was just living my best life because I was like, YOLO, I don't care. I just need to be happy because I am not coping. So that was my coping mechanism. And it was whilst I was auditioning for Rocky Horror. And I remember in my audition that by this time I'd booked the role of Rocky. And I remember saying to them, listen, I'm not in my best physique. And they were a voice of concern, which is absolutely fine. They were just like, you have 1 year, but just make sure that you're on top form for when we start rehearsals for Rocky. So the pressure was on. And I remember going, I'm about to do one of the most iconic roles in theater in a leopard print Speedo. What am I doing with my life? And it was so stressful. And dysmorphia had hit an all-time high. And that's why by the time I'd finished Rocky and the pandemic hit, I was able to reflect on what my relationship to food was even during that show.
Right.
And just how I brutalized my body to get into shape, how I would also overeat to get certain muscles or take certain pills and tablets and things to just enhance myself, to cut myself to, I mean, the fat burning stuff, because I wanted to have no body fat, like ludicrous, all these kinds of things that now I'm in the best shape of my life. I don't take a single tablet. I just have a really much better relationship with food. And I've now realized that I don't need a lot of the things that I thought I needed in order to give a successful performance and show and an aesthetic look. It's so interlinked.
How did your energy levels change between the time in China, then the workout time preparing for Rocky, and then now that you are kind of on a much healthier in terms of looking back at how you slept and how you functioned and how you felt emotionally, and like in terms of those 3 phases?
My energy levels are through the roof now. And what I meant by it's so interlocked is that society has developed a world where you take one thing, because you're now taking this thing, you need to take another thing. And because you're taking that thing, now you need to rely on this thing. And now, because you're taking all 3 of those things, now you need to see that doctor, and that doctor puts you here. And then you're just a mess. And then it's all the coping mechanisms.
Yeah, it's all the branches
alcohol.
of the tree not really dealing with the root, the unhealthy root.
Yeah, 100%. And you've got to get to the root cause for yourself. And it's different. It's different for me to different to you. So I'm not going to sit here and say the solutions that work for me are going to work for anyone else. But the quest and asking the question is the most important thing to get you there. Like for me, stopping alcohol immediately started helping. Initially for me, it was so that I could see my abdominals, because I know alcohol goes straight to the abs, and that helped. But it in turn helped my energy levels. Because I had been performing for so many years, I didn't realize I was suffering from adrenal fatigue, burnout, all of that. I became part of the coffee culture. And it's not to diss coffee at all. I think I love coffee and I think it's super tasty. But again, you should be having coffee as a choice, not as a lifestyle. It shouldn't be, oh, because I was told to have a cup of coffee in the morning, it's going to wake me up. Wake yourself up, know how to wake yourself up. And if it's a choice to enjoy the coffee, then have the coffee, if it's intuitive for you. But I was caught up into the whole thing of like, oh, it's early, I need to have a coffee. Oh, I have a big show tonight. Oh, I must have another coffee. Oh, it's a double show day weekend. I need like 5 coffees. To the point where on top of adrenal fatigue, my anxiety levels went through the roof. So I stopped coffee and I went through the whole like withdrawal period. But again, that helped me a lot more.
You know, for the 2 biggest changes I made was to only have my espresso after my breakfast and not before. I just felt better. It wasn't giving me that sort of super high and then the crash. For me, that was a game changer. That happened like 15 years ago. But that was a big aha moment for me to go, oh, you know what? I actually feel better if I don't drink coffee on an empty stomach. I mean, my routine has since evolved. I now start with celery juice and so on, and then berries, and then
celery juice.
And then my coffee, you know, like that's where it went. And the other thing I read this, and this was also a few years ago, maybe 4 years ago, I read this incredible article about, you know, when you have a piece of sugar and it stings your teeth or a tooth that has a cavity in it, it's because the sugar with your nervous system on your nervous system, that's what it does to your whole body. You don't feel it as painfully as you do on your tooth, but that reaction happens from head to toe because sugar with your nervous system is a nightmare. It really puts your whole body out of whack. And that was a big aha moment for me because they call it a sweet tooth to you know make it sound cute, but really it's just a sugar addiction. So let's stop trying to make it so cute. It's just a sugar addiction. So when I stopped sugar, I've always struggled with borderline personality disorder. That sort of went away within a year and a half of stopping sugar. It was incredible, the change. Do I miss it? Of course I do. Do I ever have a piece of chocolate every now and again? Of course I do, but not to the extent that I did before, to your point.
Yes, no, 100%. And again, it's such an individual journey. And that's why I always say to people that I'm like either coaching to or speaking to, I'm like, read a lot of things, absorb a lot of material, listen to a lot of people speaking, because it is, I mean, I think there's so much stuff out there, but don't ever be dogmatic about certain people's regimes or ways that they've healed their lives, because everyone is on their own journey and we have to take the nuggets. And even from this here, what we're doing and talking about, take the nuggets, but then individualize them and go, what does my intuition say? Like that gut feeling, like, and really just learn to live in that space. And that's been the biggest eye opener for me, because, and still there's many days where you have the pressure of the industry needing to look a certain way. I mean, you're going to laugh, but the biggest challenge for me here in the UK is my pale skin. So, I am proud to admit that I was tanorexic at one point, and I think I tried every tanning pill under the sun, sunbed, spray tan. I mean, I think I was at the ballet bar once, and my teacher, we were doing class, and she looked at me and she came over and she whispered and she was like, "Are you okay?" I was like, shit, I'm either doing something really wrong or I look like I'm gonna pass out. So I was like, yeah, no, I'm fine. She was like, do you have jaundice? All my pieces were like yellow and orange. And because of these tablets I was taking, because I never saw the sun, because we were training like 15 hours a day, I was like, no, how am I going to get brown? Anyway, so coming now to London, I was like,
so funny.
We're not going down that road. I was like, we're just going to accept the fact that whenever you end up being brown is when you're going to be brown. No tan can, no fake tan. We don't want to be orange on the sheets. But like, yeah.
But you're also 20 minutes away from Spain. You can always just pop over and go get a couple of days of sun on your weekend and pop back to London. That's the beauty of living in London.
Yeah. I just need to get that visa again.
Europe is just around the corner. I lived in London for 8 years and I adored it. You know, like you just pop over to Paris for the day and you come back. I saw on your Facebook feed a lot of photos with you and your horses. And there's one picture in particular that will pop on the screen with you kissing your horse, which is just so gorgeous. Being around animals like that, what has that done to you growing up and since?
Animals are our biggest saviors on this planet, and our biggest teachers of core values, which is in hindsight, which is what I've come to learn. Horses specifically, so I've grown up with horses my whole life. I grew up on the farm and show jumping and just really working with them. And when all these terrible things happened in my life, they were my best friends, whether it was the dogs, the cats, the horses, the hamsters, the ducks, the chickens, whatever they were that I had around me, that were constant. They taught me constant, unconditional love. They were there, and I was able to. I remember the one time I had a big meltdown, and I ran to the stables in the evening, and I just sat in the sawdust, and my horse just put his nose on my head, and I just lay underneath him, and he just stood there. And they just give you this healing, calming energy that just kind of tells you that everything's going to be okay. And a lot of my life lessons growing up were with horses, because people think, oh, because you love your horse is going to love you back and they're going to do everything you ask them to do. And that is the last thing that the horse is going to do. Because if I had a really terrible day at school, I would get home, jump on my horse, and if I hadn't realigned myself to the present moment, left the shit at home, got on, respected my horse to go, I'm going to give you the best centered present energy I can be. If I didn't do that, we had a lesson from hell. My horse would run out the arena. He would try to back me off. He wouldn't jump. He just wouldn't listen because we were just fighting.
Yeah, because they pick up on that energy, don't they?
Yeah. So you really learn to work with that sixth sense. So you learn telepathy really quickly with animals, and you learn to communicate with them through energy, because that's all you have. So it's with the mind, and you really start to ground those teachings. And they taught me really quickly to just be in the moment. And when I was in the moment, they would give me everything. And you would be soaring over those jumps and you'd go, okay, that confidence. So yeah, they're amazing animals.
Jarryd, I'm going to end with the following. If you have advice for anybody stepping into show business, or coming out of the closet, or stepping into manhood from teenager to adult, if you had advice for that person, perhaps watching this clip or listening to this podcast, what would that be?
I would say live each day as presently as you can, and always follow your intuition. That it's that gut feeling, it's that knowing. Don't get into, if you're thinking 1 second longer, you're in your thinking mind. So it's that initial impulse, and you're really learning to live in that every single second, because I always like to call it, and I don't know where I read this, but it's that eternal present moment that we're creating our lives. So just being in the moment and allow yourself to be you. And I think that was, I got taught this when I was 10 years old from a medium I once saw. And the advice was just be true to yourself. And I think if you can be true to yourself, live in the present moment and follow your intuition, those are the 3 magic recipes to get you there. And then the last one is just have so much fun. As long as you're having fun, then you're in the right energy and you're in the right space.
That's amazing. And for me, the big lesson was to know what is gut feeling, what is impulse, and what is intuition, and what is not.
And that's the hardest journey.
Yeah, I didn't really know what was what. Is it my mind, or is it my ego, or is it my shadow, or is it my true self? So yeah, really good advice. Thank you so much for joining us. I wish you all the best with this new leg, I guess, of or chapter of your life.
Yeah, new chapter, new book.
That's absolutely true. And I hope everybody watch this show and gets inspired about what you have accomplished and what you have been putting out on social media and so on. And again, what you do has such an amazing ripple effect that, I'm sure everybody will get so much out of it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jarryd. All right, guys. So that was Jarryd Nurden, all the way from London. And please follow him on social media. I'm going to put all the links below. Check out his Facebook, check out his Instagram. And if you're in London, go and see his show. This is all from us today. Thank you for joining us at A Matter of Taste.